Every year on Christmas Eve my parents drug us. I found out why. Yeah. You read that right. Maybe you even read my post last year. I was pretty panicked when I wrote it, so it was short, but it was real. It's pretty simple for how crazy it all sounds. Every year on Christmas Eve for as long as I can remember my parents drug us with sleeping pills. Something about not being awake when Santa comes. We have a whole schedule the family keeps to. Dinner at 5, at 6 we put on our pajamas and watch that shitty movie It's a Wonderful Life, and yeah, the PJs match, and then at 8:30 we all use our last bit of eggnog to wash down the pills. They're strong. My sister's out in probably 15 minutes. I take a little longer but I'm always asleep by 9. Then we wake up the next morning, groggy but okay, and Mom gushes about everything Santa left under the tree. Because we're good. It's all bullshit. My whole life I thought this was just what you did on Christmas. You have to be asleep when Santa comes, right? Otherwise his magic doesn't work. So we took magic pills to make sure we'd be asleep. As a kid it all made sense. You don't question shit like that when presents are on the line. Your parents are the law and you don't question them either. I only started to think that it was weird when I hit middle school. By that age, you don't believe in Santa anymore. Or, you shouldn't. The last holdouts get mocked and the rest of us start talking about things like boxes and sneakers and how we're gonna get them. Me. I only had one question when the topic of Christmas came up. When did you guys stop taking the magic pills? That's a question that falls under the family business only clause and I regretted it immediately. If any of them told their parents I'll never know. In a bigger city with more oversight someone would've, or should've, called CPS. Out here, population 5108, yeah I checked, bumfuck nowhere left of the oil fields, no one gave a shit that some kid's family was drugging them for some piece on Christmas Eve. The day I asked that question all my friends howled with laughter while I sat there beet red and trying to play it off as a joke. That was the day I knew it wasn't normal. Last year, I'd finally had enough. I got sick of the lies. Sick of the matching pajamas, sick of playing pretend that we were having the perfect family Christmas. I wanted to know why my parents drug us. I had to know why. So when Mom handed me that little white pill I hid it under my tongue and spat it in the toilet. Then I went to bed and pretended to be asleep. I listened until I heard Mom snoring to get up and look around. I wasn't surprised to see the tree stuffed with gifts already, Santa who, but that was it. I wasn't finding any secrets. Nothing unusual or weird, until I saw them. I was reading the credit card statement, so sue me, they drug us, when I saw movement outside. We always have a white Christmas, and by that time the street was dead quiet, so when I saw something rush by the window, it startled me. I just about opened the front door to go look when I saw them. Lots of them. Landing on the roofs one by one and crawling into the chimneys of every house. I don't even know how to properly describe them. Is that what PTSD does? Stops you from remembering things? Because I must have PTSD. I know I have it. I have to have it. I crouched by the couch, hiding behind the curtains and watching these giant red spidery things as they skittered across the rooftops. They'd reach a chimney in one by one hop in the air, tuck their legs into a line beneath them and shoot down the chimney. They'd be gone for a few minutes and then shoot back out. Mostly with nothing. Sometimes with random items or decorations. For one brief stupid second I thought that they were maybe some fucked up version of Santa's elves until I heard the most god-awful sound. The sound that still haunts my every waking moment. Agonized screams of pure terror. Wailing. Crunching. Grinding. The sound of someone's body being forced up the chimney. Human bodies don't fit in chimneys. Not like that. I watched in horror as the smith's daughter Maggie came up the chimney, pulled by two of those freaks of nature. By the time they pulled her out she'd stopped screaming. I don't think she was alive by then. I hope she wasn't. Her body wasn't right. It was like a tube of toothpaste that had popped. I sat there in shock, watching the smith's roof turning pink before I felt the gravity of what I'd just seen bury me. Suddenly I knew why my parents drugged us, and I needed to get to sleep, fast. I ran straight for the bathroom and poured out 3 of those little white sleeping pills, then dove into my bed. I pulled the covers over my head and started chewing. Have you ever tried to chew pills? They're not supposed to be chewed. They taste like shit. I just about threw up twice. It didn't help that I could hear those things getting closer. You know those movies about Santa and his reindeer? About the bells and the hooves? That's them. There's no reindeer. That horrible clicking comes from them, and I knew what they did to people who weren't sleeping. Waking up Christmas Day was awkward. Everyone else woke up for Christmas morning and I woke up with my dad shaking me awake past noon. I could tell he wasn't impressed, but me. I was thrilled. The last time I woke up on Christmas that happy I was like, 5. After I stopped screaming, that is. It took me a few seconds to realize I wasn't being dragged up our chimney, but once I did it was great. I threw myself on my dad like we were in a wrestling match. I ran downstairs, hugged my mother harder than I had in years and then threw my sister over my shoulder. She was 8, still 100% a believer, and had been sour about waiting so long to start Christmas until I tickled her into submission. Happiness is contagious, and for the first time in a while I was thrilled to see a Christmas with my family. It was awesome. Until it wasn't. We'd opened stockings and exchanged gifts and were gorging ourselves on fresh cinnamon buns and eggs Benedict when I made the mistake of glancing outside. By that point I'd sort of convinced myself that I just had a crazy dream. I'd snuck off to smoke pot with one of my friends early Christmas Eve, so I figured maybe it had mixed badly with the sleeping pill. But the moment I looked outside my eyes were drawn to the Smith's house, and that pink patch on top. Suddenly I couldn't swallow and I drank a whole glass of milk just trying to choke down my food. It hadn't been a dream. So where were the cops? Sure, I'd gotten up late, but a kid goes missing on Christmas Eve, you'd assume that the police would be crawling the neighborhood all day. You look a little green, bud, you okay? I'd been staring out the window, feeling the pit in my stomach grow heavier and heavier when my dad jolted me to reality. I looked at him and nodded, trying to take another bite for show. Hey, have you seen the Smiths? I asked suddenly, wondering if maybe they just hadn't wanted to spoil the mood. I watched my parents take a sharp but quick glance at each other before he shook his head and smiled. Not yet. I'll let you know if I see Maggie outside though, he teased with a wink, grabbing my shoulder and giving it a squeeze as he left the table. Mom gave me a kind smile and poured me another glass of milk. I probably sat there for another hour before I finally gave up and went to help my sister set up her new dollhouse. I needed the distraction. When winter break ended, I was back at school, expecting to see an uproar that never came. Freshman year of high school, a kid had gotten into a car accident and the entire student body held a vigil for him. There was a memorial in the auditorium, meetings after school to light candles, and the school even brought in a couple therapists. Nobody said or did anything like that for Maggie. It was like everybody just kind of forgot that she existed, and it was strange. Hell, even the local newspaper seemed to skip it, and they had absolutely nothing to report on most days. It took until mid-January before I spotted a tiny obituary tucked in the corner of a back page. I saved it, stuffing it in a notebook at home for safekeeping. It almost felt like if I didn't remember she died, no one would. Honestly, the whole incident took a toll. March came and went, and so did my birthday. I was 17 now, supposed to be focusing on planning for college, but all I could think about was Christmas. I could barely sleep. Every night I'd go to bed and lay there staring at the ceiling, jumping at every little snap or crack. Every morning I'd wake up with darker bags under my eyes than the day before. I couldn't focus in school. My grades dropped. My parents started asking about drugs. By the end of October I'd had no less than 8 visits with the student counselor, who kept gently asking me if things were okay at home. What could I say? No, Ms. Andrews, I saw Christmas spiders pull a girl out of a chimney and it makes it hard to do math. Right. I couldn't tell anyone. How do you talk about shit like this? I sounded crazy in middle school when I tried to ask my friends about being drugged on Christmas Eve. I'd definitely get locked up if I talked about giant red spiders taking people in the night. But I was losing my mind. We'd had Thanksgiving. Halloween was coming, and the colder it got, the more anxious I got. The stores were already running clearance on costumes and jack-o'-lanterns to make room for ornaments. The first signs of Christmas were already seeping in, and I was absolutely, without a doubt, terrified for my life. That's when my friends called me to hang out. It might sound stupid, but my friends and I have a code we use when things are bad and we need to talk. We'd definitely drifted apart in high school, none of us really hung out that much together anymore, but none of us had ever backed out when someone said they needed to smoke. I was exhausted, but I figured the worst I'd get was some weed out of it. Besides, when the bat signal goes up, you gotta answer it. Roll it right or don't roll it at all, man, Ella complained, watching Greg scowl while trying to ready a joint. We were huddled in the woods behind the school, freezing our asses off in the early cold snap. Max groaned and snatched everything away from him, making quick work of it and then lighting up. Christ, finally. Okay, he breathed out smoke with a sigh before passing the joint to the left. So, it's been one hell of a year, right? Max was always the type for speeches. I sat there shivering and waiting for my share, staring at the ground. We haven't had much time to hang out. And even though I've been busy, you guys are still my best friends. Even one day when I go off to Hollywood and become famous, I will always love all of you. There were groans all around and Max waved us off, coughing a little and laughing. So that love is why I called us together. I think we all know why we're here. Hayden, he paused as Ella finally passed me the joint, this is like an intervention. I didn't even get to smoke before I choked and coughed from surprise. We're really worried about you, Ella added gently, putting a hand on my arm. Don't be, I mumbled, taking a drag. I glanced back at the school. I'd been fired from my job, so my car wasn't insured. I'd gotten a ride there with Max. If I wanted to leave I'd have to walk home, and it was too cold for that. Come on, talk to us, bro. You've just disappeared. We never see you. We're worried. Don't be. People think you're gonna shoot up the school. God, I thought we agreed not to tell him that. Ella squeaked, covering her face as Greg just shrugged. Someone has to. You guys suck. I stood up to leave. I was already stressed and running on no sleep. Now I was fucking embarrassed too. People thought I was going to shoot up the school. Did my friends think that? I didn't even like killing bugs. Stop. Just stop. Max grabbed my arm and pulled me back down, passing me the joint. Just relax. Come on, we're your friends. When Ella's parents divorced, what did we do? We smoked, and talked. Greg's dog died, we smoked and talked. You're not the Hayden we know. So talk to us. I sat on the stump, fidgeting and staring at the ground until I was high enough to be brave enough to try and tell them the truth. What did I have to lose? They thought I was crazy anyways. You guys remember in middle school, when I talked about magic pills? The Santa pills, she asked slowly, squinting at me. I mean, yeah, I guess. What about it? They weren't magic pills, they were sleeping pills. Ever since I can remember, my parents have drugged me and my sister on Christmas Eve. I thought it was normal. They told me they were magic pills to make sure we were all asleep so that Santa, I stopped and groaned, rubbing my face and trying not to wuss out. So that Santa would come. Because he doesn't come when you're awake. I saw Greg clamp a hand over his mouth, his shoulders shaking. Ella shot him a dirty look and elbowed him hard, then smiled at me. Fuck, this is stupid. Never mind. No. No. No, it's not. Keep going. Come on, we want to hear.